Welcome to our podcast, Leadership Lessons from the Seat of the CEO. I am honoured and excited to have you join a conversation with Peter Jones, CEO of 19 Group. They have come through an amazing journey, their second round of private equity funding. As the original founder of the business, Peter has moved through his journey in this organisation, but importantly, he also shares his own journey as an individual, as a leader, as a CEO, and beautifully as a father. Join me for a conversation that brings the whole person into the seat of the CEO. Peter Jones, welcome.
Thank you.
A delight to be in conversation with you. We've talked about this for a while.
We have.
And here we are.
We're here.
Before we dive in to talk about your lessons in the seat of the CEO role, maybe you can set a bit of context. Tell us about 19 Group.
Oh, okay. It's like one of those moments on holiday when somebody says, "What do you do?" And they come to Vicky, and that's really easy. She says, "I'm a dentist," and they're so easy to absorb. What does 19 do? We organise shows, not shows as in theatre, not exhibitions like photography, but we do trade shows. So essentially, 19 brings together tens of thousands of people per year to our trade shows across incredible sectors like security, safety, manufacturing, retail, to meet solution providers. I think in an environment, Tess, that has been evidenced by 2 years of COVID forcing being apart, in an environment that works best for human beings and us being together. So I'm genuinely passionate about what 19 does. It unites people to solve problems in person.
Amazing. And I absolutely have the privilege of being alongside you guys and the exec team in particular for the last couple of years, because I know you've been incredibly intentional around the culture of the organisation as you build, you scale, you grow. Just say a little bit around that growth journey, because I think that will segue beautifully into your learning as a CEO. So tell us about the journey of 19 Group.
So the journey of 19 with private equity behind us is always either hoped to be and expected to be a fast-paced growth journey, right? So a high-performance culture. And it's been a journey that hasn't come without its challenges. Tess, I think most journeys are a bit of a roller coaster. It has felt a bit like a ride in Space Mountain, from times upside down in the dark and no idea what's happening next, especially through COVID.
Yes.
But it's been an incredible journey, which in the end is one that's taken a long time to realise. We're here nearly 6 years after the start of 19, but one that's been empowered by culture. If you'd have asked me pre 6 years ago what culture was, I'd have laughed and referred to a yogurt. But these days, I've really learnt and understood the power of having a healthy culture in your system. What that enables is a vision to be achievable. And I think 19 is very much on its path to achieve its vision, its North Star, empowered by a really strong and healthy culture.
Amazing. So let's dial into you, if we may.
Don't you make me cry. I'm supposed to be a tough CEO.
Peter, one thing you are not is a stereotypical CEO, and I love that. So what's been your biggest challenge in the role of CEO, would you say, in these 6 years that you've travelled?
The transition. And the transition to two very different types of CEOs. So there's private equity CEO, which was very much owner driver of a business.
Yeah.
So I'd probably put myself into that stereotypical checkbox of a founder entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And then transitioning from founder entrepreneur, where you're very an operational owner driver of a business, to being leader of an organization. And that's been two very different places to be, Tess. And I was determined to give it a go. I've got to be honest, I didn't think I'd be able to do it. I'm not sure I have done it yet. But I definitely feel 6 years on in a better place to where we started. And it's just a really different skill set that requires a different set of tools
Yes.
to be able to lead an organisation versus my previous life.
And of course, you'll know from our ongoing relationship, including, working very closely together over the last circa 4 years. I always like to bring the human dimension because, we talk about people as whole people. And I'm a firm believer that the most powerful leaders are whole person centered. And therefore they create the conditions for their people to be fully included in all their dimensions. Could I get you to dial into the human aspect of Peter? What's been the biggest pain point as a human as you've moved through those 6 years, if we take off the CEO label for a moment?
There's much talk in leadership about authentic leadership. How do you show up in the workplace? I'm also a big believer is that in this whole, your work and personal life should be separate is nonsense. I think who you are at home shows up in your workplace and vice versa. I think one of the most trickiest challenges is to actually try and understand a bit more about who I am. And coming into 6 years ago, I didn't know who I was. I knew who I thought I should be.
Yes.
As a CEO, and this expectation that, should lead. Some of the old myths, we should be resilient and robust and set the agenda and everyone follow me. And it's taken a long time to feel safe enough to embark on, so about 18 months ago, started a personal journey. So I've had a CEO coach for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
He's been incredibly immeasurably valuable in helping me to understand, culture, how to lead, how to communicate. But the thing I was still lacking is who am I? I've never really known. So 18 months ago, embarked on a personal journey with you. And really, I believe and hope I did open myself up to fully understand who I am. I'm no finished product after that 12-month journey test, but I definitely feel I've got a little bit of a better understanding as to what makes me up, and therefore that I hope helps me to be a better leader. I want to be the best leader that I can be.
Yes.
For our people,
yeah,
and to get the best out of our people, and to create an environment where we're honest, we're transparent. I think I need to look inside myself first and to open up and be honest to myself first. And I think after 12 months, I'm in a better place.
Yes.
To be able to do that.
What sort of feedback or observations have you had from people when you've, I'll always say to you, we're all a work in progress. And I love the fact that you've been open to working on that dimension of yourself to add to everything that you'd done before our time together, of course. But I'm intrigued to hear what people have been noticing as you've started to be more comfortable with who you are and be okay with whatever that might be. What sort of feedback have you been picking up?
If I was to guess what people might say in 360, maybe a little bit more calm.
Yeah.
Previously, my leadership style, I've definitely, I know I've got the energy and the drive and the ambition that can at times be exhausting for those around me. I've always imagined it visually as, when you're in the middle of a swimming pool on holiday and you got the lilo and you start pushing it up and down and start creating waves in the pool. So I've got lots of waves of energy.
Yes.
But that sometimes for everyone around you that starts to, move around the ball can become quite turbulent. And I also think because I wasn't understanding what was hijacking me, I would over-engineer and overcompensate. So when I was having times of turning up to 19 group, feeling not in a great place, the insecurity, lack of confidence, I would over-egg it in a workplace with even more confidence and exude even more energy. And then what that creates is just, I think, unpredictability. So I think hopefully today in 19, I'm a little bit calmer. And that's probably coming from a place of understanding myself a little bit better being a bit more confident, a bit more secure in who am I,
Yes.
and not having to over-engineer the environment around me. I'm happier being me. And I think hopefully that's starting to come through with our leadership team at 19, and they're starting to feel a little more secure and not being bumped around the pool so much.
Yeah, and if I may share, I have picked up some anecdotal but important feedback on your behalf, because we are working quite closely together, at our organisation supporting yours. And the words that I've heard are transformative.
Oh.
So having been through the journey that you have and being comfortable to lean in and be a work in progress, what advice would you give to people who are coming through the ranks, let's say, who are aiming for their first CEO role, whether it's in private equity or in another context? What would be your words of wisdom?
Just take the pressure off yourself. I sat with the newly PE-backed CEO a few months ago, and he was kind of almost sounded like a me 6 years ago. He's coming into the role with this great kind of pressure on himself that he's got to be a great CEO, and he now needs to lead a high, fast growth paced PE-backed organisation and lead and be resilient and all of those things that, those check boxes you think as a CEO you've got to do. And I think my biggest takeaway is just be you. Because when you create that pressure on yourself, it creates an unhealthy ecosystem within you that I think does radiate out. Is to have confidence in yourself. Just be you. And the people around you, and one thing my coach David taught me a long time ago, is the power of vulnerability. Mm-hmm. And 6 years ago, I thought, I can't be vulnerable because I've got to be the leader. But actually, I learned to be vulnerable is powerful, and it makes you more real. And to be able to sit in front of your people and say, guys, I've got that wrong.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry.
Yes.
Has been a really, really powerful thing to do.
Yeah.
I think it makes you more accessible, it makes you more authentic.
And I've witnessed you do several times in front of your leadership community, which has been fantastic. And I would call out the reality is that what you do as part of that, and of course others would as well, is you make it okay for others not to be perfect.
Yeah.
And you make it possible for mistakes to be dropped in and worked through quickly, rather than everyone trying to cover them up. And then before you know it, you've got much bigger problems on your hands. So from a cultural standpoint, I think that's also really pivotal in terms of how you've instilled this fail forward, fail fast, be open with your mistakes.
Yeah.
And I've seen you do it on LinkedIn. I've seen you do it in front of your team in person. Which is a really nice segue. Tell us about what you've learned around building the team around you as a CEO.
So I struggled previously to attract the right people around me. I think I've been good at having a vision and the energy and the drive, which does attract people. This time around with private equity behind us, so we've got an exciting vision, we've got the ambition, which does attract talent to the business. Mm-hmm. And with PE behind you, you finally got the access to capital to be able to pay people what they're worth.
Yeah.
So we had no problem in building a team around me that's super talented. And just to drop in a couple of names, Alison Jackson drives this group she's a group MD and is probably the most experienced set of hands test in this sector, period. Got her. I've got the strongest CFO, John Lacey, has been CFO at some of the biggest organisations in this sector. He's a Rolls Royce of CFOs. Sorry, Freudian slip. CFO. And we got him. And then around Alison and John, we built a leadership team of 12 people. And we've got 12, again, some of the most experienced operators in this sector. The problem I've had once they're in is then working appropriately with them. And as a previous owner operator of a business, I've just been wired to be hands-on, be involved, be on the front line. I thought it was always super cool to roll your sleeves up, jump on the front line and be alongside everyone else and helping them do their job with them doing their job. And what I realised, that's really undermining really quickly.
Yes. Your organisation at 19 Group is probably unique in so much as, so you've already said PE backed, and I call you guys the trio, yourself, Alison and John, are a really strong trio, and then a fantastic leadership group around you. What I'd love you to share a little bit, again, from the seat of the CEO, what's it been like and what have you learned about this acquisition trail? Because you've brought in the owners of these businesses and you've integrated them. And so that must be a little bit tricky. But yeah, I also know this is your sweet spot, to first of all, to entice them in, and secondly, to hold on to them. Could you say a little bit around what you've learned around that part of your journey as CEO?
Yeah, so prior to Phoenix, I'd launched, built and sold 4 businesses. And I sold to the big trade buyers. I've sold to Chloe Messer, sold to Easy Fares, I've sold to Clarion. And then finally, we sold to private equity. It's bloody harder. It's harder to buy a business than it is to sell it. Because one, I think, may make an arrogant mistake in an organisation. If you've got the capital, you can go out and buy whatever you want, and the person you're buying from is interested in the best price they can get for the business. Not true. It's not true. Obviously, the price is important, and it needs to be competitive.
Yeah.
And the structure of the deal and the earn out needs to be favourable for the sellers. But they're letting go of their baby tests. This is something they've built for 5 years, 10 years. Some of our businesses, 20, 30 years, they've been building these businesses. And to let go of their baby and, for their people, their family, to now go into a new environment, there's so much more. The anxiety that grips the seller in that moment of letting go, it is immeasurable. So for us, I think definitely the benefit to 19 is having been on the other side of the fence and understanding the anxiety and talking to a seller, not just about multiples and deal structures and price, but to be able to relate to them and what goes on at home with their partners and their wives and their husbands and their children when they sell a business. And quite often for a seller, when they sell the business, one of the biggest things in their mind is what next. Especially if they've been around, let's not go there with the age thing. Let's just say they've been around a long time and they're, approaching further towards the end and the beginning of their career. Once they've sold this business, what do they do next? And that creates enormous unsettlement and anxiety in that founder entrepreneur. And I've been there and I've gone through that journey of, oh my God, what next? So I think being able to relate to that makes a big difference to the attractiveness of community. We understand. So we always get behind the sellers and support them in what they need. And I think, again, and I've been on the other side of that fence where I've been bought and I've got into that, new big trade organisation. And, on day one, they're like, right, this is the XYZ pay.
Yes.
And that just never works.
Okay, that's really helpful. Let me draw a few strands together now, if I may.
Yeah.
And each one of these are, what's your biggest learning? What's your, if you take those 6 years together, what's your biggest learning as the CEO, the standout, your top tip?
My biggest learning as a CEO is just to have the confidence to be you. Don't try and be something you're not. Yeah. Don't read the nonsense and all the books and the podcasts that sometimes can present, not all, but some of the podcasts that can present this image of a CEO. You've got to be this amazing leader and you've got to be, resilient and inspirational and just be human. Because the moment you just start to be more you and more human, the people around you can start to feel more relaxed. Because I know that 6 years ago, when I was trying to project myself for being, and I came into a personal journey test and I said, I've got to be the best CEO. I've got to be the best dad. I've got to be the best husband. They're just unrealistic. And in trying to do that, even if you can project an image, and I'm a good salesman, I can project an image of I'm an amazing CEO and an amazing leader. Follow me, guys, I've got this. And the moment you can start to relax and be more comfortable and confident, the more the people around you relax. And when people around you relax and they start to fit into a more comfortable them, the organisation just takes on a different shape. It just starts to become genuinely more authentic. But in order to do that, I had to get to a place first where I felt confident in me. Because I always felt, Tess, if I open myself up that I might expose something that's not as good as I think I am, or not as good as the image I'm projecting.
Yeah.
I got to the point where I realised that where I've got to is a good place, and what I've achieved is good, and I felt more comfortable in myself. I was able, I think, to be genuinely more open and comfortable in the work environment.
Wonderful.
And these days, when things go wrong, or I miss something, or I'm in a board meeting, or somebody says, well, Peter, that was on an email thread a few weeks ago. So what? I missed it. It's just having a confidence to be more comfortable in me.
And staying with the same thread, meaning the biggest learning and therefore the key takeaway. What about as a dad?
Same as being a CEO, is just don't try and be something you're not. And I think as a dad, one of the best attributes I can teach my children is just be you.
Beautiful. Wonderful. That feels like a good place to pause. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, a delight, as always. Thank you for being with me.
Well, thank you, Tess. You spend a lot of your life thanking other people and your interviews and CEOs and the organisations you work with, but also from me to you, thank you. And it's through the work we've done and the personal journey that's helped me to be a better CEO, but more importantly, a better dad and a better husband. And I think my message to my children and my wife is, you know what, I'm okay. I'm never going to be the best, but I'm good enough.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Tess.